going on in Midwest City schools, basically because they are Oklahoma City. And then again, they cannot really participate in Midwest City events. And where Steed and all of Midwest City schools, they all participate in some type of activity that they're having in Midwest City, but not this particular community. They're shoved aside by themselves.
So what if we continue this item until the next meeting? That gives us 2 weeks for you to assess if there is another option based upon what Oklahoma City wants to do. If there is a greater, right, if there's a greater.
$5,000 and they reopen, we can move that back there without us having to do anything, right?
No, I don't
And
think
also, negotiations
Heather?
have already taken place between Mid-Del and the Boys and Girls Club, and of course, school starts next week, and we've got, and I think Mrs. Tucker has already made arrangements to house the Boys and Girls Club. So we would be putting not only the Boys and Girls Club, but also Steed Elementary at a disadvantage if we continue it. My suggestion would be that we go ahead and approve this with the option, if in fact the opportunity comes available, that we can move forward, that we look for some more money to pour into this.
Christine, I don't know if you, I'm sure you remember, but I think with the exception of Susan and Espy not being here, this is a dogfight when it started, and the ones of us that are up here supported it. So we're aware that Telstar needs it. If you remember,
I know.
the issues that it wasn't.
Because, you know, you all, some of the council members really didn't understand at first, but then when you got out there and you saw what was going on, then everyone can pretty much see what was going on. But go ahead, finish.
I think you have the support. We wouldn't be having this discussion if it wasn't for the pathness of greatness, or whatever they're calling it. The path. We would be back at Telstar. We recognized it.
Well, is there any way,
Several-
with her suggestion, is there any, with
Well,
2 weeks, that,
Just a thought I just had just now. I guess you really shouldn't fly up, you know, but I wonder if we could consider making something for those kids during school breaks and in the summer. Maybe if we could, if there's funding available, if we could still provide, you know, a summer program.
So that's something for us in next year's budget, because which is a good idea, I think. And I think that's something that the city manager and Vaughn and everybody, the council can look at next.
Well, but I'm not questioning the need even for Steed, for the kids, I mean, in Midwest City at Steed to need this program, but I think it's kind of presumptive for the district to assume that we're going to fund this project to be placed at Steed before it came before us for discussion. I mean, I think Councilwoman Allen's point is well-founded. You know, we have a lot of need throughout the city, and unless we're going to start establishing Boys and Girls Clubs in about 5 different spots in the city, somebody's going to get neglected. And so I think that's a little
Well, I
presumptive
think
for
it
the
was a
district to jump out
presumption
there.
that we did not want this money to go away.
I don't think anybody wants it to go away, though.
And that we wanted this program to continue. It wasn't our fault that the Oklahoma City School District decided to close schools, and we wanted this, we saw the value of the program.
So did Dr. Cobb come to you and ask you where
Actually,
to
I
put it?
approached Ms. Sutter, I approached Terry Kraft. I said, is there a way that we can keep this program going in Midwest City, period. So Ms. Sutter got with Dr. Cobb. They met several times. They decided that Steed was the school within Mid-Del schools that met the same demographics that we saw
It's
at
not the same.
Telstar. It only made sense to move that program rather than losing that $75,000 back to the general fund, which would have happened if we hadn't have found a place to put this, and move it over to Steed. So that was the dynamics of this whole thing. I thought it was a collective thought throughout the council that we wanted to maintain and preserve this program. And
maintaining a
and
correct demographic?
And again, it's not our fault that the Oklahoma City school system decided to do what they did. So it was, again, a presumption, maybe on my part wrongly, that we wanted to preserve this program. So that's why I got Mrs. Sutter Terry Kraft and the school district together and let them look at the school system and see where we could plant this program. I just didn't want to see it go away, and I don't think any of y'all wanted to see it go away either, but that's what would have happened.
I would like to say one other thing before she jumps back in. We can't do a lot of things about the Oklahoma City schools, and this may not be the right time to say it, but I hear rumors, and the school system in the city sometimes I think could work a little, and it could be total rumors. So I just like to see them have more communication, work closer together to save some money here and there. Like the rumor I heard the other day was press box. They had to put the sprinkler system in an entire metal press box. Spent $200,000. Redoing some of the detention pond behind the Carl Albert baseball. There's a lot of scratch the plans, come back in and redoing. And I wish that the schools and the city would work a little closer to try to save every dime they possibly can to stretch the dollar a little more.
Okay.
What do you mean, work together? You talking about both school districts? Is that what you're saying, or what?
It's not a school district in the city.
Oh,
Just to, I think we understand, just to make the dollar go further, to where we can watch the dollars, not waste any of the taxpayers' funds.
Mrs. Tucker, could you come up here and tell us about Steed Elementary?
okay, I just want to say this while she's coming up. Even though we have this discussion about Steed is Midwest City School District. And Midwest City School District is a large school district, but it is Midwest City School District. So you know that anything is going on, activities, baseball games, everything. Those kids have that advantage. The kids over there in this particular community, they don't have that advantage. They have nothing because they're in a totally different school district, so they are totally left out.
I don't disagree.
And I think it's unfair.
I don't disagree with you, however, and I'm not disagreeing with you.
Right.
The Middale Public Schools very easily could have washed their hands of this and said, Oklahoma City created this mess. We don't have to do anything. I think Dr. Cobb, and ma'am, I'm sorry, what was your name?
Mrs. Tucker.
And Mrs. Tucker, they deserve the thanks for at least not washing their hands of it because they could have.
So
Well,
what's the
I said it's
contribution that the
watching-
district is
what-
making to the Boys and Girls Club? We're being asked for $75,000. What's the cost the district pays for the Boys and Girls Club?
That neither school district pays for Boys and Girls Club, but by allowing us in their building.
They just allow you to use the facilities at no
and access
cost.
to the kids and being in their facility, that's the trade-off, which is significant, honestly, but there's not like.
But they don't provide transportation either. It's just you can
Well,
set it.
and that's the benefit of an in-school Boys and Girls
Mhm.
Club, is the kids are already there. So
Right.
Transportation is not the issue as it is like at our standalone club.
Mhm.
So they provide, and really another great advantage that being in a school or the school district provides is that communication with teachers and counselors and principals about what kids really need help. So there's a lot of communication that happens, so that's kind of an in-kind
I know.
advantage. But no
Your point.
dollars passing between the universities.
And as his point, what he said, I thank them. Well, of course, I understand what you all saying, the money go back in the funds, but is it really, really needed? Because this Boys and Girls Club was serving a whole community. This is just going to be serving one particular school. This was serving also Willowbrook when there's enough space. It was an overflow. It flows over to those two schools. And, I understand how you're saying it's really good and great that they accepted, but if we're wasting our money to where it don't need to be, well, maybe we don't need it. We need to redo it, vamp, and to get it back where it needs to be into a demographic area where it's needed. So thank you for saying that, but I disagree with that because I want my money and our money in Midwest City to count for a very good cause and
I
where
think
it's really
some-
needed at.
I think sometimes when you get rid of something in a budget, it's really hard the following year sometimes to get it back. And I would rather spend
Okay.
the money to help, even if it's just one kid. It's helping more than no kids.
Can we allow Ms. Tucker to
Yes,
tell us
go
about
ahead.
Steed Elementary?
Good evening.
but I do have students who have applied from Willowbrook and Telstar area that we have accepted on out-of-district transfers. And right now, I'm at capacity, and we're getting phone calls more and more. And I do realize the hardship that they're going through, because I had to turn down a mom who told me that she has 3 elementary school-age children, and they're going to 3 different school sites. And I do feel for them. But right now, I have to look out for the students in my area, which, like I said, we have a demographic similar to Telstar. I've always taken transfers from Willowbrook or Telstar, always coming in when there have been issues or just a need where they like to try out a different school system or different district. So I do empathize with what you're saying. You know, as Mr. Byrne, am I saying that correctly? Said, you know, with the pathways to greatness, it's just caused a mess.
How many students do you have?
I have roughly, I think we ended the year at about 420, typically. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said you have the greatest percentage of free and reduced lunch population students in the district for elementary school?
No, in my area.
There we
in
go.
this area.
Okay, there we go.
Yes, when we're talking about like Cleveland Bailey.
Yeah, but not compared to like Midwest City Elementary.
No.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, and thank you for aiding those students needing transfers, because I know a lot of the parents are moving out. They don't want their kids. The parents don't want their children and their youth going to some of the schools, for as Rogers and you know, with the transition. A lot of them has decided to move out of the area, which the only thing that I would like to say and convey to the city council, my peers, I ask that if we pass this, if we go ahead and okay this, that we definitely try to find a place for those kids in the Telstar area for the next year.
Next school year, I think we've already brought it up about the summer, too.
The
So I don't
summer,
think we
okay.
wait till the school year.
And plus
We look at the
too,
budget
Ms.
for it.
Allen, not only do we look at funding the summer and spring and Christmas break, but my challenge to you would be that we work together with Ms. Kraft to find a suitable replacement and get it placed over there. We do have buildings now. Again, the transportation is the issue and getting the kids to the place, but if we can at least offer some interim programs, I'm all ears.
And-
And again, we didn't create this.
No, it's not, you know, Midwest City. We understand where it
Okay.
really filtered from and where it started from. But we as Midwest City, we have to still be concerned about our residents, because these are, I mean, kids, they're hopeless. They have no voice. We are their voice.
I agree.
am these kids' voice
I
over
can-
there.
And I
guarantee
would
you-
like to
say
like
this.
to add that early on in this process, and I think I relayed this on to you, we approached both superintendents about bringing those schools into the Mid-Del school system, and it didn't float, and it's unfortunate because we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Well, I think it was on both sides, Middale and Oklahoma City.
Well,
And-
it's
and we have had there's been some stagnatic and some negativism about the kids in this particular area, but regardless
Well,
of
it's
that, but they are
actually-
still Midwest City residents. And what
actually-
happened to them, if anything happened to our kids, it's gonna say Midwest City, it's not gonna say Oklahoma City Public School. It's gonna say
Actually,
Midwest
it
City
didn't have
residents.
anything to do with that so much, ma'am, as the fact that it was real estate. Districts did not want to take on additional real estate, and that's exactly why Oklahoma City's in shape they're in is because they had way too many schools at low capacity, and they had to shed real estate, and McDowell wasn't in the position to accept any more real estate. So that's what it really came down to, ma'am.
So.
3 years ago, Christine, when this first came up to a vote, the mayor, Pat, Jeff, and I were the ones, and you, that voted for this.
Right.
Susan wasn't here. SB wasn't here. It's been voted for every year since then. We do care about everybody in the city.
Thank you.
And I think that,
I'm not saying you don't.
I know,
I'm saying we
but
have to.
I'm also, we recognize, and that's why we have voted yes. And it was more of a dogfight that first year than it ever should have been. But since then, it's been unanimous, and tonight's going to be unanimous also, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Because we do
but-
care about those kids.
Yes, with the proposal that we do try to keep it for the summertime, that we find a place for them, and also that going forward, we try to find a place to stabilize could we stabilize a Boys and Girls Club somewhere in a building where it can meet up, where
So can
there
I
is-
make a motion that we pass this with the hope that the city manager and the assistant city manager and the council will look at our budget next year for the summer, and also try and work with the Boys and Girls Club and Terry Craft to look for grants that are out there so we can find another building that's more appropriate in the right neighborhood. Are you okay with that motion?
And that
Okay,
they
but are we
do-
going to do that for 5 spots around Midwest City? I mean, honestly, Sean, this need is not isolated to Christine's ward. It's not isolated to Steed. It is a pervasive problem. If you look at the stats for our district, for Mid-Dell District, the number of kids who are on free and reduced lunch program is staggering. So if we're going to start digging out and looking for locations, then we need to do it on a broader perspective than just.
Okay, then fine, let's do that.
Well, then, for
But
right
that's
now, I
but that's
think
a
we need to
next
take
year
care.
budget
I
thing.
understand what you're saying.
So
but-
I don't have any problem with that. I think that maybe we should figure out a way to fund one in the Oklahoma City area that Oklahoma City Public Schools have abandoned there. I'll say it. I don't really care if I make any of
It
them mad.
is true, it's abandoned, it's
But
by
let's
itself
also
over
look
there.
at one
It's
in
true.
Mid-Dell as well, if we can figure out a way to help this. I mean, there's grant money out there, and we're not going to abandon our kids just because Oklahoma City schools did.
But I would like to see the
So I made a
money
motion.
funded for, you said the spring, for the break, for
We have a
next
second
year.
motion and a second.
Is that for next year, that, for the summer break
No,
that
no, that's where they're going to look in the budget.
The motion
next year.
is to go ahead and fund it,
funded for
and then
the,
we look forward
for the Telstar for the summer?
for something for the summer,
Okay.
and also
But that's next
look
budget
for
year.
other
We gotta work on that
opportunities
Next year when the budget comes up.
Wait,
We're not-
to
Close
place
that.
other
You
clubs
can't
in
do
other
it next
schools.
summer.
Am I correct
It's
in
impossible.
saying that?
It's improved.
Yes.
I've got a motion and I've got a second.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
And can we, reiterate
The motion?
the motion, what we just
Okay,
said?
the motion is that we go
That.
ahead forward and fund this,
Funded
looking
for-
forward,
The
looking for,
$75,000
Right,
that we have directed city staff to look at the budget next year to increase the budget. One, if we can have two, one in your ward and one in Midwest City, but also to find the proper buildings and everything else. We can't authorize money for that
But-
next year.
we are authorized, this motion is supposed to
Okay.
have the kids for Telstar for the summer.
No.
Yeah, this
That's-
is what it's for.
we're looking,
This is
For the
for
summer.
the motion is to, okay,
For this year.
the motion
Summer
is
is
to
next
fund
year.
it, look for opportunities to go ahead for Boys and Girls Club to look for a building for the kids for the summer and in the two breaks. And then we look for other opportunities in Midwest City to place Boys and Girls Club.
But we're not voting to fund next summer because that's got to be in next year's budget. This
That we're gonna have to,
$75,000
we're gonna have to look in next year's budget to do that unless there's a supplemental. And
I
if an
understand.
opportunity comes available, we would like the city manager to look for those opportunities.
Okay, so for the 75,000, doesn't it go from what year? What is the calendar year this goes
19,
from?
20.
From what?
August to next July.
August to next June, to next June?
Fiscal year.
Okay,
Our financial fiscal year.
right.
$75,000, my understanding would be for us to have a Boys and Girls Club at Steed this year and taking out this year. So I think what the other councilmen are talking about is looking at other potential opportunities to try to serve the kids from your ward and perhaps other locations as well. Steve, so it would be allocated to that for now.
I still say it's a disgrace, but you know what?
Okay, I do have a motion and I have a second. Thank you for that robust discussion. With that being said, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I see that the motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Sutter, and thank you, Ms. Tucker, and I wish you a good school year.
So much to say for Telstar students.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, going to discussion item number 1.
Discussion item number 1, plat correction for the Turtlewood 6th edition final plat to correct an error on the dimensions of Lot 12, Block 9, and Lot 26, Block 10 on the approved and recorded plat. Mr. Harless.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Yes, this is just to correct a scrivener's error on the plat. I'll be glad to answer any questions on that.
The Turtlewood, how's that coming along, and the detention that was supposed to be changed? Is all that moving forward in a positive direction?
Yeah, Councilman, the modifications to the existing pond there on the west side of the addition's complete. They're looking at doing further modifications as they expand to the south towards the Delisi area. But the ones that came before council from Mr. Bo Peeler and his neighbors, all of that stuff has been modified, and the outlet of that has been relocated.
Thank you.
I just for note, back when we got all that rain, I made a point to drive over there to make sure the modifications that we ordered them to do were working, and they were. That elongated detention area that we had them build was working fine, and the two residents to the north have not gotten any water that I've heard of since those modifications. So that was good work on everybody's part on that one. So, is there any further discussion on this discussion item? The chair to entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please make note that Ms. Allen stepped away from the horseshoe. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Item number 2, discussion and consideration approving an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 1 to 15, specific penalty for violations of code, establishing an effective date, and providing for repealer and severability. This is from Mike Stroh. Mike, you want to come up to the podium to ask any questions? This will be our first recommendation from the Ordinance Review Committee that recently met.
Mr. Byrne, as chairman of that committee, would you like any input on this before we go through the next 6 discussion items?
We met with the individual, that night, the people from the individual offices or departments or that have, that are either going to enforce this or have to deal with it were all there. They presented it and provided us, most of it was pretty self-explanatory. There were some questions on a couple of them on who's going to enforce it, because there are a few of them that have an enforcement issue with it. And individual departments that are involved are aware of that and have all agreed to do their part in it. So the committee did go through them all and recommended all of them to be approved.
That being said, could we truncate the discussion on these by any chance and move to approve these?
I don't think that would be outside the ordinary.
I mean, we've had council members review them, and
Can we do that?
if we ask for no discussion on it, I mean, we've had council members review it, we've had city staff review it. I mean, these are just standardizing and
Yes,
improving the effectivity or the effectiveness of
Can we
ordinances.
forego,
Can we go with that, Heather?
Pass them
How long would it take to go through them?
Well, because they're discussion items, you certainly can not ask questions of staff and simply has the city manager reads them into the minutes, go ahead and make a motion and do the
That's what I'm
individual
asking you to
votes.
do
But
exactly.
right, Mr. Burns correct, we would
Have
need
to
to vote
read each one of
individually.
them.
In back to her question, there's going to be several more of these groups. We won't want to do that for some of them.
No, we wouldn't.
Because they're so long.
Well, no, there's some that are going to be, well, they may be just a tad bit controversial, either from several different ways. All of these are pretty self-explanatory. Some of them were just cleaning up the language. Some of it was, we had ordinances that were inconsistent, and they were identified, and we're trying to make them mirror. So it doesn't say A, B, C in one, and it says A, C, B in another.
Heather, if we've given the citation to them, do we need to have them read full text into the record at this point?
Yes, because they're discussion items, we just simply need for the minutes for the manager to go
I
through
read
each of
pretty
them.
quick.
So are these something that can be put on a consent agenda going forward? No.
I don't suggest that they are.
Okay.
These probably could have been, but there's 2 legal pages of them that we're doing them just like 10 at a time. And we've been warned that some of them are going to take a little bit more time than others.
Okay.
And if it's taking time with us, it's going to take time with you guys to do.
Okay, proceed, Mr. City Manager.
But we need a vote on number 2, and then I'll go to 3.
Do we have a motion?
No, we need a
Chair would
motion.
entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Discussion consideration, approving an ordinance amending the City of Midwest City Code, Chapter 24, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Article 1, in general, Section 20-4. Definitions, Article 5, stopping, standing, or parking, Division 1, General, Section 24-158, prohibited in specific places, and Division 4, residential parking, Section 24-201, deleting Section 24-202 and 24-202.1, establishing effective date and providing for repealer and severability.
I move to forego discussion and move to approve the item.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item 4, discussion consideration approving the ordinance amending the City of Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 27, nuisances, Article 1, in general, Section 27-6, remedies against a public nuisance, Article 4, abandoned, wrecked, dismantled, or inoperative vehicles, Section 2761, storing, parking, or leaving junked or inoperable motor vehicles declared a nuisance, Section 2762, penalties, establishing an effective date and providing for a repealer and severability.
If there is one that needs to be explained, I think this is the one that, you want to explain why we're changing it?
No, that's fine.
You probably just need to stay where you're at.
Yeah, just
Yes. All right, so the first change, 27.6, what we did there is policies that we are now, when we contract a nuisance, we issue a big contract, and that bill goes to the owner of the property for the tax rolls. We also write a citation to the occupant, which would go to the water. So this is just to clean up that language under 27.6, adding the and or. Next part would be the 2761, the storing, parking, or leaving a junked or inoperable motor vehicle. We have a section in there that it was 100% exempt if the vehicle had a black tag. The intent was a black tag should give it the same ability as a normal tag, but the way it was written, a black tag gave it 100% exemption. So if it was dismantled but had a good black tag, it's fine. And we didn't want that, so we fixed that, cleaned up that language so that the black tag is still okay. All it is the tag that's up to date.
Explain the black tag.
Black tag just means that you do not
Would that also include a tree growing up through the middle of the car?
If the tag is black, it would have exempted it. If the tag was not black, those should have already.
Thank you.
And then the last part of it is under 2762, the penalty. You guys fixed the code a while back that our prosecutor gave to you doing the recidivism, and this is just to clean it up. It was left out on the cleanup version, so that's just to clean it up.
Move to forego further discussion and move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next item.
Item 5, discussion and consideration of an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 25, Municipal Court, Article 3, Jury Trials, Section 2585, Defendants' Election Generally, Section 2586, Change to Defendants' Election, and 2596, Jury Term to be set by presiding judge, providing for repealer and severability.
Move to forego discussion and move to approve item.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item.
Item 6, discussion, consideration of passing and approving the ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 16, Food and Food Handlers, Article 1, in General Section 16.2, Food Service Sanitation Manual, establishing effective date and providing for repealer and severability. This is from the city clerk's office.
Move to forego discussion and move to approve item.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
I'd
Next item.
I'd like to say to the council, ordinance review members, and the staff that put a lot of work into these meetings, getting prepared in advance. Thank you. There's a lot of hard work that just went into those ordinances.
Yes, there was.
More to come.
More to come. Discussion 7, discussion consideration of an agreement between Middale Youth and Family Center, Inc., Middale, and the City of Midwest City for emergency youth shelter, counseling, juvenile diversionary program, training, consultation, and community education and domestic violence advocacy counseling services provided by Middale in exchange for $50,000 payment by the city.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce Darla Cheek. She's the Executive Director of Middale Youth and Family. Is in attendance tonight to field any questions that you may have. Thank you, Ms. Cheek, for being here.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. You all were our founders in 1971. We were actually city employees when we first started and branched off into a nonprofit. So I appreciate the support for all of these years that we have been partners and worked together.
Did you collect the backpacks last week?
Yes. We also distributed school supplies last week.
You got a couple from the lot.
Okay, thank you.
And if you guys don't know, Middale Youth operates a shelter which is located in the 1700 block of South Westminster, in which police officers, when they run into situations where kids aren't safe, they have a safe place to go to. Also, you're working on a program now to kids that age out of foster, that you'll provide a couple of places for them as well.
Yes, I'm actually a foster child myself, and I'm very honored to be running the Middale Youth and Family Shelter. It's near and dear to my heart. We have a huge problem in the foster care system of kids that are turning 18 and aging out of foster care at 18. There are programs, but a lot of children or a lot of youth at that age just choose to not participate in the programs offered by DHS. They've had enough DHS involvement in their life and they choose to go on their own. So we are beginning a project, considering a project, moving forward on a project for, it's really quite sad. If they're in our shelter now and they turn 18, DHS tells us to drop them off at a bus station or a homeless shelter. And that is just heartbreaking to me. So we are going to start having there's a transitional housing to help them get on their feet. When they're in our shelter, we teach them life skills, coping skills. We give them all the things they need to be successful as an adult, except housing after they turn 18. So it's near and dear to our heart.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I don't mean to be disrespectful to you at all, but I mean, I can't think of a better cause, so if nobody needs any further discussion on this, I move to conclude the discussion and move to approve this item.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Eads. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you, Darla, for being here. I appreciate it. And thank you, council. Ladies and gentlemen, we move into new business public discussion. Anybody have anything to bring before the council this evening? Hearing none,
Wait,
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Come on down. Sir, for the record, could you state your name and address?
James Earl Sanders, 2216 South Highland Road, Midway City, Oklahoma,
Yes, sir.
3110-2342.
Thank you.
Airport on the, I can't talk about some of the, but on the mental discussion we had for the council personnel, as a citizen of Midway City, I'd be willing to pay more dollars in tax. Me and the bitch, I can't speak to anybody else to provide, because I'm the son of education. My mother was an educator, and I believe in programs like that. What I came to talk about, I've lived in Oklahoma roughly about 40 years, but most of it is South. And since I moved back to Midway City, that's all I have is. And I didn't know it was back there, but there's when you have something for military and reading the part of state out, so I'm a Vietnam era veteran. And I just always saw the street name, but right there by the McDonald's, we have a Vietnam Memorial back there. And I'd like to appreciate the city of Midway City for doing that. I don't know who was mayor, but the council, everybody, because I'm a veteran and I shake all veterans, policemen, and firemen's hand. I made a statement here. I don't get to come to a lot of meetings, but Chairman, since I've been over here, and I've been locally here, there's some good politics from statewide. At a national level, I don't have too much respect for the politics at the national level. And there's a reason anybody that's been in the military will understand. But I just wanted to address that I appreciate what Midway City, because the base is actually Midway City King. Like I say, I'm a proud Air Force veteran. You know, my father was a World War II vet. My brother was retired in the 87th year vet. So I just wanted to give you a kudos while you get here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service, sir, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming.
I have one item that I'm going to throw out here while we're on new business. I've been approached by someone who is wanting to set up a basketball tournament for youth in the city. And so while we're talking about activities for youth tonight, I'm throwing that out there, folks. I've got some folks who are interested in getting that set up. So anybody who's out there in the audience who might be able to provide me some assistance in getting that off the ground, that is beyond our 3-on-3 tournament that oh, sorry, Chief left, but we've had Ms. Arnett, the Arnett Foundation to be a key sponsor for, but a regular youth league is what I've been approached and requested about. So anybody who's able and willing to help me with that, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Eads. We do have an executive session slated for council. Go ahead, and Mr. City Manager.
Let me read it and then we can decide. So F1, executive session with purpose of discussion of confidential communications between public body and its attorney concerning a pending investigation, claim, or action pursuant to Title 25 Oklahoma Statute Section 307B4. We can finish or we can go ahead and go into executive session in recess.
What would be
and
the
come
wishes
back.
of the council?
Let's finish and do them together.
Okay, I would need a
We won't need
motion
the second
to recess.
Move. Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are hereby recessed from the City Council. I call to order the Midwest City Municipal Authority. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so that the trustees, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet the approval of all trustees or members of the audience wish to discuss an item, it will be removed and heard in regular order. Chair would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
Mayor, before we go on, I know we passed it, but I want to thank
Yes,
So thank you.
absolutely.
We do have one discussion item. Go ahead, Mr. City Manager.
Discussion item C1, discussion and consideration passing approving an ordinance authorizing for the sale of a 2010 Bridgeport Unit 410324 property with a fair value of more than $10,000 is required by Article 4, Section 4 of the Midwest City Charter and providing for repealer and severability. This would be a side loader sanitation truck that we're surplusing.
When was the last time we looked at the dollar figures for something that had to be a discussion item? I mean,
Well, this is a charter, so it's going to require a
it's
vote.
a chart. Okay.
But it is something that when we have a charter vote, that'll be something we'll deal with the ordinance review committee. Is some of those questions. This is one that the city clerk is going to bring back that we change.
We have several charter items that we're looking for, or looking at. We still have a quorum.
Well, it'll require a vote of the people when we bring it back, but it's one that it needs to be increased because, we hit that threshold pretty often now, especially with vehicles and
Yeah.
and
Now,
backhoes.
10,000 20 years ago was a good amount of money. Now,
It was
and
a lot of
nowadays, I'm
money
not
back
sneezing at it, but for a piece of equipment, that's not very much.
No.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. And then, ladies and gentlemen, move into the new business public discussion of the authority. Does anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned. I call to order the Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority. We do have a consent agenda, and once again, these items are placed on the consent agenda so the trustees, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet with the approval of all trustees or members of the audience who wish to discuss an item, be removed and heard in regular order. That being said, Chair to entertain a motion. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We have two discussion items. Mr. City Manager, go ahead.
C1, discussion consideration of an action to reallocate assets, change fund managers, or make changes in the statement of investment policy guidelines and objectives. We have no changes for tonight to bring forth to the council, or to the authority, I'm sorry.
So no action needed on this
No action
particular
needed.
item. Item number two.
Item number 2, discussion consideration awarding a contract for design and interior architectural services to Flick Mars for the property improvement plan and brand conversion of the Midwest City Sheraton Hotel in the amount of $200,000 plus overhead costs outlined in the contract. This is the requirement by Marriott to hire a pre-certified design company. We went out for RFPs and interviewed 4 companies in Dallas. Those are the closest companies to Midwest City to cut down in administrative travel costs. Flick Mars was the selection from the committee that reviewed the RFPs.
I
So we
looked at
would
the
recommend.
presentation they put together, what they've done in other places, and
Phenomenal.
it's going to be neat if they can pull that off here.
They do very good work. They've done many, many projects in the Oklahoma City area. They have done the very first conversion of a Delta hotel out in California, and they're one of the leaders in design for the new Marriott product, the Delta by Marriott product. So that was primary reasons we selected them. They were recommended by 2 of our local engineering companies as well.
Ms. Eads, we're getting ready to vote on discussion item 2 of the Midwest City Hospital Authority. If you want a minute to review it.
When do they start?
Thank you.
They already started they didn't start in incurring any cost, but they came up and had a kickoff meeting with us and went around and toured the city, looking at our history, our rich history, looking at the ponies, going to the Atkinson homestead and looking at the pony barn and doing some things with Tinker, and so, but we won't incur any cost till this is approved. Clarify myself there.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, move into the new business public discussion of the authority. Does anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing none, we are hereby approved. Now let's see if I can get this one right this time. And now I call to, I'm sorry. We are adjourned. Did I say we are adjourned? Okay, thank you very much. I'm glad I pray.
You might
Ladies and
wanna
gentlemen,
try
I
that a
call to
little
order the
more.
Midwest City Economic Development Authority. I got it right?
This is a tough crowd, Matt.
I know. We have, we have one discussion item on this agenda. Mr. City Manager.
Discussion and consideration approving the minutes of the special meeting on July 23rd, 2019 as submitted.
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. We do have an executive session attached to this agenda. Mr. City Manager, go ahead.
Discussion consideration of one entering into executive session is allowed under 25 Oklahoma Statute 307B3 to discuss purchase or appraisal of real property, and two, an open discussion or open session authorizing the general manager and administrator to take action as appropriate based on the discussion in executive session. We will not need this executive session tonight.
So no action needed on that particular item. Is there any further discussion? We are hereby adjourned. I
Motion
called.
to go back into, I'm ahead of you. Motion to go back
You-
into city
you-
council.
I have a motion and a second to come out of recess of the council agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We do have an executive session. A motion to go into executive session.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we're moving into executive session. We will not return to the council chambers. Thank you for your participation.
And this is why the mayor makes 33% more per month than the rest of us.
I'm asking for a raise next time. Christine just disappeared?
Yeah, I think she just left.
counts for her attendance? Because she was here?
It counts for attendance, yes.
Wow.